welcome everybody to this first of the talks as part of the Responsible Gem Boutique, which is in turn part of the Chicago Responsible Jewelry Conference. And this first talk is all about the Moyo Gems project, and I'm very happy to be joined by my partner on the project, Monica Stevenson from Untitled Gems. My name is Stuart Poole from 1948. I'm based in the UK. And yes, in the next half an hour or so, we're going to be talking about the groundbreaking, pioneering, some might say, certainly exciting project that we are undertaking in Tanga, in the northeastern part of Tanzania, along with the other partners in the project, which are PACT, which is a not-for-profit organization based in the US, but working in around 40 countries across the world. And most importantly, the Tanzanian Women's Miners Association, TAWOMA. So you're going to probably hear us use that acronym many times during the next 30 minutes or so. So my background is that I run, as I said, 1948, which is a supplier of fully traceable and responsibly sourced gemstones based in the UK. My main sources for stones, apart from Tanzania through Moyo, is Sri Lanka, and I also source stones from a few other countries. But this session is very much focused, as I said, on the Moyo Gems project in Tanzania. And I was, I think, very fortunate to be involved really from very early stages when I heard Christina Villegas from PACT speak about the Moyo Gems project, which wasn't even called Moyo Gems at that point, was it? It was a project just without a name in Tanzania. And Christina presented at the 2018, if I remember correctly.
17.
Even been 17, thank you. 2017 Chicago conference, where I was in the audience, and instantly, because I already had a slight connection with a project in Tanzania, so I thought, fantastic, this is an opportunity really to get on board with it, what sounded like another amazing program that PACT was putting together at that time, very much on the educational side with the Gemological Institute of America, GIA, and they were running training sessions for the miners and educating them about gemstones and rough material and things like that. And that was the beginning, the foundation block for the Moyo Gems project. So I instantly, upon hearing Christina's presentation, went up to her and asked if I could be involved in some way. And fortunately, she was happy enough to have me on board. And I think at the time, Christina was speaking with you, Monica, isn't that right? After the presentation, and fondled in and said, "Please let me join in." That's how I got involved. So I will hand over now to Monica, and you can tell your story as well.
Thank you, Stuart, for introducing the project. In 2017 was a pretty pivotal year. We connected in person at the Chicago conference. So the conference will always be tied to the origins of Moyo. And we are a really, I think, unusual collaboration in the industry. Not very many true collaborations exist, particularly between kind of the NGO world and the more commercial side of things. So it is a rather unique story and collaboration, and I'm pretty grateful we were all in the same place at the same time to actually make that connection. We were just thinking about the theme of the conference, which is to listen deeply and act collaboratively. And we actually, that's in the origin of Moyo, is that idea of listening. So I think what really kind of spurred the idea of Moyo initially was this, there was a GIA education, artisanal miner education program that was used TAWOMA and the Tonga region as their pilot project. And that was particularly captivating for me because I'd been to that region a couple of times. I knew the beautiful gems that come from that area. And then the fact that it was actually specifically targeted, that pilot to the women miners, was really resonated with me, since I focus a lot on women in my in my business, Anza. And when we did kind of come together and decide that this was something that we wanted to do, which was to kind of build on their education and actually bring their gems to market. But we traveled there in 2018, and we actually had facilitated discussions with about 50 to 60 of the kind of key sort of original Moyo miners. Again, it wasn't called Moyo at that point, but this was a gathering by Tuoma and a facilitated discussion by PACT to really understand who they are, what their challenges are, and then how could we actually craft this market? How could we craft this project to actually benefit them? And not just our idea of beneficiation, but actually, what do they want? What do they need? And so that idea of really listening, that's the ideas that we came away with in 2018 is kind of how we built the foundation of the project. So for those not familiar with this, we do ask for the Moyo miners to meet several criteria to participate in the market days that are kind of at intervals in their region, in their villages, and which are quite remote, by the way. They're pretty much a full day's drive from Tanga town, which is on the kind of northern border of, right on the coast of Tanzania. And it's a good 6-hour drive to kind of the heart of the villages on roads, to get there. So it's quite remote, and we bring the market to them, but we do ask for a few things in order for them to kind of participate in those market days. So they must be members of Tuoma. That's an important kind of base criteria. We have asked that they have licenses with the regional government office to mine, and that is partly to kind of formalize and organize. It's also partly for their protection, so that they're not at the whims of a verbal agreement with wherever they are, whoever owns the land that they're mining on. So a lot of the women have collaborative, cooperative situations where they actually share mining licenses and kind of share in profits, but also share in expenses with that as well. We also required that they had attended the GIA education course, because that was very instrumental in kind of giving them a base knowledge. Some of them were digging for minerals and had no idea what it was that they were actually finding, let alone how to clean, sort, ID what they're finding. So education is key, and we are constantly looking at ways that we can build on that. And for the first market day in May of 2019, we actually had organized occupational health and safety training for free for the miners in their villages. So the idea was not just to buy their gems, but to actually kind of scaffold them and help them kind of work towards true participation in the global gemstone industry. They're completely invisible. This fully 30%, maybe more of the artisanal workforce globally, and they're invisible. A lot of people are really surprised that there's women miners, and not only are they out there, but they're extremely marginalized. They have even less access to education and funding and resources. So we feel it's important to kind of target this population, because first of all, they're really good stewards of their of the financial benefit that kind of comes from these market days, and they're being trained. Actually, Tuoma has undergone training to train the trainers for a financial education and literacy program that is a direct result from our project and the attention that it's gotten. It received a wonderful Tiffany grant to do that. So, we're just kind of building layers and layers. In terms of what's new, so we've been doing these market days, and of course, 2020 rolls around. We were in Tucson. The whole team was there. We were fired up. We're ready to go back and do these, regular market day intervals, expand as much as we can on the program in that region. And of course, we everything shut down. And frankly, the circumstances for artisanal miners kind of worldwide is due to COVID and the lack of buyers is really, really dire. These are subsistence economies. And when you removed any kind of international buyer traveling under any circumstances to buy in those regions, it had a pretty devastating consequence. So some of the miners actually had to move to farming or maybe sort of working where they could in their local economy. There's not very many options, but they were trying to feed their families, because if there's no international buyers, there's no money flowing in, and you go to food insecurity really, really quickly. So early on in 2020, we during the pandemic, sort of April, May, June, we were really focused on how do we get aid to our mining communities in the form of food, masks, COVID education, soap, things that were really needed in those communities. And we used Gem Legacy as a vehicle for that. They delivered aid to 60 some miners in the Moyo program during kind of the really difficult shutdown, complete lockdown period. And then we kind of shifted to, okay, like aid is great and it's necessary, but how do we continue? The whole idea was to create an economic system, like a sustainable sort of renewable market. How do we buy their gems? And so we were very fortunate in having such amazing local partners in the PACT Tanzania office and Tuoma in the region, that we were able to pull off what we call remote market days. It just means we're not there, but our export broker would buy on our behalf. So Stuart, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about how we've been able to do the market days, even though we can't travel yet.
Yep, I can do. I was just putting a couple of links actually that might be of interest to people into the chat there to tell them what we've been doing most recently. But yeah, I think just taking it one step back, I think many of the things that you've just been describing really were the important parts of how we were able to develop the relationship with the miners and with the exporters and with the brokers and all of the people and the government officials, of course, and all of the people that we needed to be able to then take that step that you've just mentioned, going from the aid aspect back to the actual commercial aspect. So the fact that we had spent so much time in developing the relationships, building that level of trust with the miners themselves and with the relevant officials, that even when we weren't there, that we were firstly, as you've eloquently said, we were able to put in place the aid package and the aid process to help them, and then subsequently they believed in us and we trusted them. So it's a mutual respect there and an ability to work together so that we could then say, okay, we've got to a certain point, let's get back on track as best we can, despite the fact that we can't actually be present in person at the market days. So I think that was the really important thing. And just also as part of that is, as you mentioned, that the importance of the educational aspect. But I think part of the trust has been built by the fact that we continue to engage in much more than just a commercial transaction with the miners. So as you know, when we're there, there's a constant dialogue going on with the officials from the government, with the members of Tuoma, with all of the miners that come to the market day to evolve the project, to make sure that we're going in the right direction, that we make sure that we give back useful feedback on the material that we're seeing, all of those different things. And as we know, we've got great plans to try and expand on that into the future and go beyond just the gemstone aspect and the trading aspect into other areas. So I think all of those things have come together. Not least, also, I did think when you were speaking that we should mention, of course, Susan's contribution in bringing us together, not only with the initial presentation from Christina, but also with the fact that we had members of Tuoma come to Chicago and speak to the audience themselves. So we've really developed a whole different level, I think, of a relationship and interaction with all the people in the supply chain, us and the miners specifically, that it doesn't really exist in very many cases. You know, there are some other instances, but I think we've really put a lot of work into that. So that's a long way of getting to the point of the question that you asked, that yes, when it came to it, we were able to return to actual trading with the miners because we had these trusted partners and these trusted team members at every point that we needed them in Tanzania, and that we were able to then obviously give our instructions as to the type of things that we wanted to buy, for example, and that our team on the ground in Tanzania could, as you say, go out into Tanga, into the villages, and to be, set up the market days, greet the miners. We were able to send video clips and things because unfortunately the connectivity isn't so great in the field for live conversation like this, but at least they were able to see that we were still engaged, even if it was from afar. And so during the course of this year, we have successfully managed our market days. We've had rough material purchased from the miners, which has been great. We've had it delivered to our various locations around the world. We've managed to even onboard another gem trader into the Moyo family. So Emmanuel Piat from Piat Gems, Maison Piat. And he's been able to actually go out and meet the miners and be involved in the process himself. So that's been fantastic. And so we've, as best we could, we've managed to develop the program in the direction that we wanted to go before things were so challenged and so interrupted. So I think very much so, as you said, coming back to the joint themes of the conference of the next 2 days is the fact that we have listened, continue to listen on both sides, everyone listening to each other rather than going in with any preconceived ideas about how things should be done and sticking to kind of maybe old-fashioned models, that we're trying to move forward and do what's best for all aspects of the supply chain and everyone involved in it. And then out of that listening comes the collaboration. It comes that trust and that, like I said, the mutual respect that everyone involved in the project is trying their hardest to move it in the right direction and get it to the right place. So I think those are inextricably linked, that it's the approach that we've taken has led to the situation that we have, that we are able to collaborate so fruitfully, and even when we're thousands of miles away from the miners and from the market days, that we're able to keep things going successfully. So yeah, it's been a testament to everyone involved, and personally I'm very happy just to have played a small part.
Agreed. The industry has a tendency, particularly I think on the gemstone side, to be opaque and to not to hold on to information, to be very secretive about who your sources are, where it comes from. It is definitely not. It is going against the tide to actually be collaborative, to actually be transparent, truly transparent. But that is at the cornerstone of our program. I think the fact that we have this very direct relationship with the miners, we have radically shortened the supply chain. When we purchase from the miners, it's a miner, a local broker, the export broker, and us, essentially. Hopefully we will, it's like a cardboard cutout of us right now, but eventually we'll be there too. But what we've done is eliminate, probably 7 to 10 flips of those gems from the local broker to the export broker when it finally leaves the country. And consequently, the miner, the woman sitting across the table from us, is actually getting 3 to 10 times what she would have gotten from the local broker alone. So it represents a a shift in actually the distribution of wealth as well as the shortening of the supply chain. And the beautiful thing is when you shorten the supply chain, you get greater transparency. So it's kind of a virtuous, sort of circle in that regard. You mentioned, oh, by the way, hi Marvin from Nairobi. Like he was very instrumental in the GIA education program. He was the translator. He was able to go to these villages, and he was the first contact with these women. Actually, that was the seed of for me, my involvement with this is that Marvin, we were sitting in the back of a safari vehicle. I was in Kenya for another reason. And he said, Monica, you would not believe how amazing the women are energized. I asked about the training, and he said, it's so incredible. We just went back 6 months later, and they are sorting and they're grading and they're renewed energy and excitement. And that's when something clicked in my head. I'm like, okay, we need to do more than just educate them. We actually need to give them a seat at the table. We need to actually bring their gems to the market. So hi Marvin, we couldn't do any of this without you. He's also an incredible gem cutter. You can follow him at AMORGEMS on Instagram, Moyo Gems. So, and I think he'll be speaking maybe later today, or in the next couple of days at the conference. So speaking of new gems and market days, we just completed one in October, late October. Christina Villegas was there, which was wonderful. So kind of one of our main contacts at PACT traveled there and was able to kind of put eyes on the ground again after a little hiatus. And she's also working on some very exciting expansion plans, which we'll be able to tell you more about in the coming weeks and months. So make sure you're following us on social media to know our exciting announcements. But I have a package on its way to me. I don't know if you've gotten your gems yet, Stuart, in Sri Lanka.
From the latest market day, the rough material is still en route from Tanzania to Sri Lanka. So
okay.
They should have it soon.
So I was hoping that I would have the box, because it's like this little Fort Knox little metal box that arrives that I have to actually break into. And I thought it might be really entertaining to see me try to sweat and open the box. But it hasn't arrived yet. It's somewhere between SFO and Seattle, somewhere between San Francisco and Seattle. But I do have a few things out on my table here. It's always hard to kind of show in this circumstance, but I do have a little bit of rough. Let's see if I can get it. These are some green garnets from a previous market day. We are fortunate again to have rough because it was so difficult to. We did have some moments, I think, early on in COVID where we're like, is this all the rough that we're ever going to have from this region? But luckily I still have plenty of rough, just to be clear. But it is nice to know that those new gems are on their way. And then I set up some cabochons. Ooh, if I tip it too much, it's I don't know if I can quite get it. But there's some lovely cabochons. These are this is Moyo material, and kind of like little rock candies. These are tourmalines, moonstones, a little rhodolite, and even a little emerald thrown in there, a little bullet cab. And then we have one of the newest Moyos is this really cool garnet, rhodolite garnet, kind of a modified kite shape, really beautiful color. And I think this was mined by Salma. So Megan's dropped a couple links in the chat, and Stuart has also dropped some links in the chat of maybe individual gems. I think Stuart did an update on his blog about Moyo. We have all of our gems cut. So all of our Moyos are cut by Beth Steer in Michigan. I don't know if she's on the call or not. She is a very talented US cutter. And so we send everything. Our process is we receive the gems. Everything is tracked to the spreadsheet that Pact and Tuwalma create at the market days with the individual miner's name and location. And so as we break those parcels down and actually send them out, we have a lot of control over it because we send it to Beth, and she's our only cutter at this point. And then Stuart, I think you also have a very linear kind of very transparent system because you do all the cutting. They're shipped directly to Sri Lanka and cut there. Maybe, but you have an exciting update about your cutting facility as well. I think you should share that.
I do, yes. So now we have, during the pandemic, we were able to actually expand our team in Sri Lanka with 2 additional cutters, both of whom are ladies. So we now have gender balance in our cutting team, and I'm very happy about that. So we have 4 full-time cutters, 2 men and 2 women. And I will be speaking a little bit more about that when I do my own session, 1948 session, a bit later today.
That's actually a good reminder. So Stuart will be speaking. What time are you speaking?
I am on at 5:15 GMT, which is 11:15 Central Time.
11:15 Central.
AM, yeah.
And then I will be on with Anza, speaking about what's new with our other gemstones, not from this particular project, but also from East Africa. So I'll be doing an update. I believe that is 12:15 my time, Pacific time. So I believe that's 2:15 Central Time. I hope I have those times correct. And there are other gem dealers showing throughout today. So hopefully everyone can tune in for those sessions as well. And I think the next one is Virtue Gem, which speaking of the challenges of starting something during COVID, Susan Wheeler and her team managed to, again, create this very unusual, very interesting market for, again, focusing on women mining associations in Zambia, Malawi, I think Kenya, and she's been able to kind of create something during COVID, which is amazing. But I do credit some of our groundwork that we laid before COVID to our continued kind of success in reaching our miners and just giving them faith that we are here, we care, we will buy your gems, we will be back, and we will do what we can in the meantime to support you. I don't know when we need to wrap up.
I think that's it. So the last thing to say is that in the meantime, of course, we will be in our booths or in the reception area, so you can find us. You can come and talk to us during the day, along with all of the other gem suppliers who are part of the Responsible Gem Boutique. Thank you very much for coming along and listening to us.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.